He was chosen from the womb, a reluctant voice against the storm. For 40 years, Prophet Jeremiah carried the most painful burden in history, the certainty of destruction. He wore the yoke, he spoke the fire, and they threw him into the mud. He was not the hero they wanted, but the warning they needed. This is the saga of the weeping prophet, the man who watched his world burn, but still held the promise of a new covenant. The kingdom of Judah trembled on the brink. Surrounding empires clashed, and the shadow of Babylon loomed large. Jerusalem, the beloved city, stood as a beacon of faith, yet within its walls, a creeping darkness threatened to consume it entirely. It was into this perilous time, this pivotal moment in history, that a young man named Jeremiah was called. Born in the village of Anathoth, just a few miles northeast of Jerusalem, Jeremiah was barely out of his youth when the divine call echoed in his soul. He was a priest's son, perhaps expecting a quiet life of temple service. But God had a different plan. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," the Lord declared. "Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Jeremiah, overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, protested. "Alas, sovereign Lord," he cried, "I do not know how to speak. I am too young." But God touched his mouth, placing his words there, empowering him, and warning him of the immense opposition he would face. "I have appointed you today over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." Jeremiah was to be a prophet not just to Judah, but a witness to the fate of empires. For over 40 years, Jeremiah carried a heavy burden, a message of impending judgment. His words were a constant, jarring counterpoint to the false optimism preached by other prophets and the self-serving pronouncements of kings and priests. He condemned the rampant idolatry. The people of Judah had turned from the one true God to worship pagan deities, even sacrificing their children in the valleys outside Jerusalem. He decried the profound social injustice. The wealthy oppressed the poor, the powerful exploited the vulnerable, and corruption festered in every corner of society. And perhaps most painfully, he exposed the empty rituals. People frequented the temple, believing its mere presence guaranteed their safety, while their hearts were far from God. Jeremiah's message was clear, stark, and utterly unwelcome. Repent. Turn back to the Lord, or disaster will come from the north. He warned them that a powerful nation, Babylon, was God's instrument of judgment, destined to conquer Judah, destroy Jerusalem, and carry the people into exile. To illustrate his warnings, Jeremiah often performed dramatic, symbolic acts. He wore an ox yoke around his neck, a tangible sign that Judah must submit to Babylon. He smashed a clay jar before the elders, demonstrating how God would shatter Jerusalem beyond repair. He bought a field during a siege, a defiant act of hope in God's future restoration, even as doom approached. But his faithfulness came at a terrible cost. He became a figure of scorn and ridicule. He was a man of peace, yet called to proclaim war. He loved his people, yet had to pronounce their doom. He was ostracized by his own family, scorned by his neighbors, and constantly threatened by authorities. Priests and false prophets plotted against him, kings threw him into prison, and royal officials beat him and put him in the stocks. In one infamous instance, he was thrown into a deep, muddy cistern, left to sink and die, only to be rescued by a foreign eunuch. Jeremiah wept openly, pouring out his heart to God, sometimes cursing the day he was born, wishing for an end to his torment. He truly was the weeping prophet. Yet, through it all, he could not, would not, abandon the word God had put in his mouth. The darkest prophecy finally came to pass. The mighty army of Babylon, under King Nebuchadnezzar, laid siege to Jerusalem. After months of unimaginable suffering, famine, and bloodshed, the city fell in 586 BC. Jeremiah, from his prison cell or amidst the burning rubble, witnessed the complete destruction of the magnificent temple, the tearing down of city walls, and the horrific exile of his people. His heart was broken, and his grief is powerfully expressed in Lamentations, a collection of dirges traditionally attributed to him, mourning the desolation of Zion. After the destruction, the Babylonians offered Jeremiah comfort and freedom, recognizing his prophetic warnings had been true. He was allowed to remain in Judah with the scattered few, the poorest of the land. But even then, his people would not listen. When a remnant of Judah decided to flee to Egypt, they sought Jeremiah's counsel. He warned them against it, telling them God wanted them to stay in the land. Yet, once again, they defied the Lord and dragged the reluctant prophet with them to Egypt. Jeremiah's final days are not explicitly recorded in the Bible, but tradition holds that he continued to prophesy in Egypt, eventually dying there, a lonely voice, steadfast to the end. Despite the relentless messages of judgment, Jeremiah also penned words of enduring hope. He foretold of a new covenant, a future time when God would make a new agreement, not written on tablets of stone, but on their hearts, a time when all would know the Lord, and their sins would be forgiven and remembered no more. Jeremiah's life is a testament to unwavering faithfulness in the face of overwhelming opposition. His story reminds us that sometimes God's message is hard and his prophets are unpopular. But through his tears and trials, Jeremiah remained a beacon of truth, showing us that even in the deepest despair, God's love and promise of restoration ultimately prevail. He reminds us to listen to the difficult truths, to repent when called, and to trust that even through judgment, God is working towards a future of hope.